lovely. Well, today's certainly showing us how individual our people with Prader-Willi syndrome are. I think we've listened to Erin, Natalie's story, and there's no two stories that are the same. And my story is going to be quite unique, probably, but I think it's a story worth sharing. We've had the theory, and theory is going to meet practice, and then practice meets the reality of day-to-day life. And that's where skill comes in handy as a parent, and I think as an educator, and we're all educators. Now, my husband and I have got 3 children, and our adventure began, and we've certainly taken some side steps along the way. My eldest is now 39. My twins are 37. And as you can imagine, there were 3 children 17 months apart. So that defined a lot of our journey. We took a sidestep in that the first 18 years, my son, Brent, who has Prader-Willi syndrome, he spent the first 18 years of his life unaware that he had Prader-Willi syndrome. So for 18 years, he was intellectually disabled and severely language disorder. And to this day, I believe he identifies himself more as someone with a language disorder than Prader-Willi syndrome, which is a real conundrum for us. We ran through childhood blind, basically. We relied on gut feeling as to what was right. Listening to all the talks today, I think a lot of what we did was pretty okay. Now, a lot of the problem came that our experience was that Brent perceived, his family perceived, the school he was at, the neighbourhood kids all expected that he would do exactly what his siblings were doing. And the expectation was he'd finished school, and he spent most of his school in mainstream education. He actually took himself out of a special setting and enrolled himself at a neighbourhood high school and entered a refugee ESL program. I think that's pretty radical. Probably sums my son up. He's pretty much of a walk my line type of guy. We expected that he would take his place in this big wide world, and we decided as a family to support him every inch of the way. And having 3 children so close together, they may as well have been triplets really, everything was done collectively. So teaching experience came into hand, because crowd control is the name of teaching. So it was all done collectively. We helped everyone work together to develop skills. And look, I was talking to someone in the corridor how the siblings were the best support Brent could have. Who taught him to ride a bike? Who taught him to swim? Who taught him to play table tennis? It was his siblings. Who taught him to go and try a fun run, heaven forbid? Help me. It was just ridiculous. But look, we didn't believe in cotton wool. We made that decision early on, that stand on your own 2 feet. No choice, because we had 3. It was just reality. So we support him, and I have to say I put in thousands of hours of work improving his literacy skills. Brent is also dyspraxic and dysphasic, which is a very severe language disorder. And for the mere fact that he was so hard to understand, his expressive language was so impaired that he had to write down what he wanted to communicate. So in order to write down and actually get someone to read it, you have to have some idea of spelling, you have to be a legible writer, and that was his preferred way of communicating. He absolutely refused to accept signing, though he did accept cute articulation. Oh my gosh. Right, I better get moving. He left school, year 10. I was quite happy because we had embraced. I went back to university midstream and came across the work of Michael Barnard, who I really admire. His program morphed into the You Can Do It program. We adopted that as our parenting style for all our kids. And the resilience, particularly when he left school, he was pretty confident, in fact, a little bit too confident at times. He was so organised, both the twins were. He was persistent, he's resilient. Now, getting along, that was a bit hit and miss, to be honest. But then he was no better or no worse than his siblings. It was nothing out the ordinary. So I felt he'd left school with some pretty good skills in place. That lasted all of 3 months. He actually had a fall. He had just started TAFE and he needed knee surgery, which ended up knee reconstruction, and this slim guy who entered TAFE was fast disappearing before my eyes because he was immobile for 6 months, and the hospital was so generous with their morning teas, afternoon teas, suppers, etc. So he just became quite overweight very, very quickly. He got the attention of a professor who said, I think we need to do some testing. One thing led to another, and before long, for his 18th birthday, he got the diagnosis of Prader-Willi syndrome. A very difficult time in your life to get that diagnosis. Now, we had a little bit of, what do we do? But we had to move forward. There was no choice. Collectively as a family, and I can still recall the family meeting we had, we made a pledge to Brent that he's still the person he was before the bit of paper came. His dreams were still his dreams. Our dreams for him hadn't changed. So we actually had to promise him, and we did quite formally, that we would support him in what he needed to do, but his strengths we would exploit shamelessly. And that's been our mantra to this day. A little bit of a postscript as I see End coming up here. Where is he today? He's 37, nearly 38. His skills held him in good stead. His literacy, numeracy skills were very functional. He was a very organised person. Now I know it in terms of the Prader-Willi parameters. I know how organised he was and why. But all those skills came together, and his confidence ended up getting him a position in a commercial kitchen. Now, he has worked for 13 years in a commercial kitchen. He is so proud of that position. He is so dedicated. He has to be the loyalist employer they've got. And has it happened seamlessly? No. We have worked very, very hard to make it happen. We've kept his environment, and I'm talking about his dietitian, his medical specialist, his employer has been just brilliant. They have all worked to make his environment as Prader-Willi friendly as possibly can be. It's worked for him, but it hasn't worked without sacrifice. We've sacrificed, me personally, a career, sacrificed financially, sacrificed health in some respects. Do I regret a single minute of it? No. Would I do it all again? Yes. And when we analyse what he asks of us, I think it sums it up in this little bit. He has only asked what any other parent would give. And if it was me with Prader-Willi syndrome, I would like to think that there'd be someone in my family that cared enough to give me the support I need. So I'm going to finish with this little quote from Michael Sullivan, who is someone I really admire. And I think he sums it up, that that is what we as parents and carers are being asked to do. Have faith and to give the support where they need it. And I have to say Brent has done that with dignity and grace, and of that I am very, very proud of him. So I've lived with Prader-Willi syndrome. I do it with a smile on my face. I don't think the siblings have suffered. They've in fact merged in this world quite happily, and I think without any scars. So living with Prader-Willi syndrome is not all doom and gloom. It's a challenge, but it's not doom and gloom. Thank you.